and gals, lords and ladies, saints and sinners of every kind. Welcome to Rise Up Jerusalem, your Catholic podcast for teens. I'm your host, Connor McLaughlin, and I'm sorry about not having an episode last week. I'll just straight off the bat say it. I was extremely busy and never even got a chance to put one out, so I decided I'll wait a week and it'll all be fine. Still, very sorry. Whatever, like, some foreign word is for sorry that makes me seem even more sorry, then we're gonna go with that. My heart is expressed with sorrow. We're gonna stick with that word. So I was driving in the car, right? As you are wont to do when you're in the car. And I was flipping through channels, going from like there's a button you can press and it goes to like a pre-select channel. Well, I hit that, but then I also hit like the button that moves the channels around. And so I went to a different channel that I wanted to be on. And I got into the station that had like this kind of rap, like spoken thing. And I was really excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, is this Ed Sheeran? And then it turns out it wasn't. The song I was actually hearing was Car Radio by the band 21 Pilots. Apparently that song is overplayed. What really caught my ear when I was listening to this was the verse where it says, I have these thoughts, so often I ought to replace that slot with what I once bought, because somebody stole my car radio and now I just sit in silence. And he says it much better than I ever can because he's a pro and he's like kind of rapping, but not really rapping it. And it just sounds much better. But I decided I'm like, wow, this song actually is somewhat good. I'm going to look up the words because I like knowing what the words are in a song. Just my thing. That idea of sitting in silence started to get me thinking about like silence in prayer, really. And how important silence is. And this is coming from me. This is the guy who like writes Christian music and is in a band at church and does a lot of stuff when it comes to music. But silence is important. One of the verses of the song really addresses why it's important. It says, there are things we can do, but from the things that work, there are only two. And from the two that we choose to do, peace will win and fear will lose. It is faith and there's sleep. We need to pick one, please, because faith is to be awake, and to be awake is for us to think, and for us to think is to be alive. And I will try with every rhyme to come across like I am dying to let you know you need to try to think. Those words really bring up a big issue, is that in our lives, we are hustling and struggling with the day-to-day, the madcap rush of every second of every day. And sometimes we just need we need to have some downtime. We need to chill, but not to fill that downtime with noise, because often in our lives, we fill downtime and times like when we're not, doing something engaging, we'll fill that with noise, be it a Netflix movie playing in the background or music. It's this idea that we're scared of the silence, because when we start getting into the silence, then the deeper questions start arising. When we start, I forget who said this. It was a Catholic speaker who said that when we're laying on our beds at night and those thoughts about why am I here and who made me come, we don't want to hear those. We put our headphones back in. And don't get me wrong, music is a great thing. It can really bring people closer to God. But at the same time, we need to look at the other side of it, and that side is silence. Silence in prayer is so vitally important. Blessed Teresa of Calcutta, St. Teresa of Calcutta said that God speaks in the silence of the heart and we listen. And then we speak to God from the fullness of our heart and God listens. And this listening and this speaking is what prayer is meant to be. And a lot of times when people say, what is prayer? It's like, well, prayer is talking to God. But prayer goes far beyond that. There's a lot of different forms of prayer, from contemplative prayer to intercessory prayer. But all of the prayers come down to one thing. It's reliance and trust. Because if we didn't trust God, we wouldn't ask him for help. And if we didn't trust that God has a greater plan for us, we wouldn't contemplate on his beauty and love. So silence is so important in that. Like the great composer Bach said that it's in the silence that the notes are expressed. So how does that apply to us when we're in prayer? Well, the silence is those times when we just have to sit. We just have to wait. We can't go further than we are. We need to just sit in quiet with the Lord. And those notes are the moments, the goodness that he gives us. But if we don't reflect on anything, then how will anything be expressed? How will any of the large moments be expressed? In silence, we come face to face with the reality of not only ourselves, but the reality of others. And that's what the song is saying, is that faith is to be awake, and for be awake is for us to think, and for us to think is to be alive. The glory of God is man fully alive, St. Irenaeus. What does that mean? That means that we need to think about who we are in reality. In silence, when we see that reality of who we are, we really truly see who we are in the face of God. Blessed Jose Maria Escriva says that when we truly see ourselves as we are, then we understand that it is right for us to be scorned. That we truly have nothing to be proud of. Even Christ had to go out in the desert for 40 days to pray in silence. And he was God. But you need that time to think and to pray and to really just have that quiet moment with God. Because in that quiet moment, not only will we realize who we truly are, but when we're quiet, we can hear God speaking to us. So next time you go into prayer, here's the challenge to you. Don't just pray. If you're making a holy hour or just making a quick 10-minute pit stop, spend half the time. Don't even have, let's say if it's 10 minutes, then spend about 5 of those minutes praying. Then spend about 2 of those minutes preparing your heart, just silencing your heart. And then spend a minute, just 60 seconds in silence. Really what it is just sit. All you need to do is just sit there. 60 seconds of silence. Maybe in the 60 seconds, God's going to tell you something. If not, at least you're getting ready, waiting, telling him, God, I'm open. God, I'm ready to hear. I am listening. Here I am, Lord. So try that next time you go into adoration. Try that next time you're doing anything. The best adorations I've ever been at is when the person doing the music plays music and has silence. Long silence. Because it's beautiful to pray to God through song. But at the end of the day, it's also great to open ourselves up to him, to show him that we're open, and say nothing. And let him speak. So guys, thank you so much for watching this episode. We'll be having back to the normal once a week schedule from here on out, unless of course something crazy happens, which it probably will, knowing my schedule. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. And as it was in the beginning, is now, and never shall be, rise up and live.